And welcome, everybody. If I could just take a quick moment. So I'm co-located with two of the founders of Alexion, which has 30 billion plus market cap today. And he describes the early days of what is now the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. In fact, if you talk to a lot of the people who've been going since the 80s and 90s, they still call it H&Q. And in the early days, it was described as a very small gathering, very clubby, where people got together and just talked about medicine. And sitting here today, I feel like we're witnessing history, perhaps the birth of the next great healthcare financial services institution. So I just wanted to say a quick note of thanks to AngelMD, and I'm sure this will be a memorable event for many, many years to come. So with that, I'm, of course, Mike Marotti, co-founder and chief executive of Sensulin. And we're basically developing a platform technology to make drugs smarter, starting with glucose-responsive insulin. And I don't need to tell you about the importance of better treatments for diabetes. At this very conference, with 250 attendees and an 11% incidence here in the United States, statistically, there are probably 30 people at this event who are type 1 or type 2 diabetic. We are your family, we are your friends, we are your neighbors. And our rather unique approach, we believe, will replace the need for separate basal and mealtime injections. Typically, patients start out with the slow-acting insulin in the morning, and every time they have a meal or snack, they need a rapid-acting insulin, which together might be 4 to 8 injections per day, which, of course, our goal is to get them to 1. If we're able to do that, of course, would make basal and mealtime insulin obsolete, solve one of the largest unmet medical needs in all of healthcare, and, of course, give those patients a chance at a normal life. And the way that we do that is by encapsulating recombinant human insulin or normal insulin inside of a liposome. And the liposomes are cross-linked, or glued together, if you will, using a unique family of boronate linkers that competitively bind to sugar. So if you can imagine this in a large three-dimensional matrix, it would not be as orderly as what you see here in the slides, but basically the patient would inject this into the subcutaneous tissue where just through simple diffusion, you would begin leaking insulin out of the liposomes, predominantly those that are on the surface of the depot. And it will continue to do that until the patient eats or drinks anything containing sugar, at which point glucose competitively binds to those boronate linkers, causing the depot to sort of fall apart a little bit more quickly. So that's how you're able to meet the basal demand for insulin, as well as the mealtime demand, which is much, much higher. So it's really just clever chemistry. Now, of course, you can also encapsulate other drugs inside of the liposomes. So our co-founder has also published other papers using albuterol, which is a very common asthma drug that's triggered upon hypoxia. He has toyed around with antibiotics that are triggered upon NF-kappa B, which is a very specific type of inflammation. And I think it's safe to say that an ideal outcome here is we partner or sell the insulin asset to one of the diabetes-focused pharmaceutical companies, and then retain the rights to use the platform for other uses, which of course is my goal. So a quick note on the team. Before I get into that, I'll just quickly tell you about my own background. I am a biochemist by training who dropped out of dental school to do startups for a living. Every family with immigrant parents wants one doctor, which was going to be me. And of course, I decided not to do that in order to start my first company. Now, that company failed miserably, I might add. So it took my parents a good 5 years to forgive me for that one. But thankfully, the second one worked. So we made nanoparticle titanium dioxide, which is a very potent UV inhibitor. And if you own any of those very high SPF sunscreens, you probably have our technology in your venison cabinet. And then I had another company that made carbon nanotubes for flat panel displays. So if you own one of those very, very thin Samsung TVs, you probably have our technology in your living room as well. So, and just recently was named a Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum, which is a 5-year commitment, and going to experience my first Davos hopefully soon. You'll probably notice some very famous names. They typically accept about 10 people from the US every year. So these are some very big shoes to fill, and certainly hope to be very successful in this company and others that will follow. And lastly, my passion for the company. You may have noticed the two companies that succeeded previously were in the advanced materials and semiconductor space. I was happily continuing that until between the ages of 40 and 60. Most of my aunts and uncles and both of my parents were diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. My parents are both now insulin dependent, as well as 3 of my aunts and uncles. So to me, this is more than just a company. It's a sort of calling, if you will. And going back to the rest of the team, basically there we go. We're piecing together Amylin, one person at a time. The CEO of Amylin at the time they were acquired is our chairman and was our largest investor up until the A round. So Dan Bradbury has personally invested $400,000 of our $3 million Series A. He's investing his pro rata in his B round as well. We have our largest investor in the Series A was a fund in China called Cowen Healthcare Ventures. Very, very astute at assessing scientific risk. And of course, they are likely to come back into this round as well. But the most important person from a development perspective is Dr. Chris Rhodes, who was the head of drug delivery and executive VP for research at Amylin, and also the principal inventor of the only non-injectable insulin approved by the FDA. So Byetta, Bydureon, Sensulin, these were drugs that were developed by Amylin. Still to this date is the largest ever exit in the diabetes space when it was acquired for $7 billion in 2012. So we, of course, have another 8 scientists that wake up in the morning in San Diego and work on this project every day, but they're the ones doing the hard work. I'm just the guy pushing paper around. So I think with that, I would just quickly tell you that the company has basically the design to finalize our clinical candidates this year and begin preparing for human clinical trial towards the latter half of 2019. And the trajectory for glucose-responsive insulins has changed dramatically for the better in the last 18 months. So there are 2 other companies in the space, both of which have been acquired preclinical. A company called Smart Cells by Merck for $500 million, and then more recently, Eli Lilly was acquired by Glycostasis. Did not disclose the terms, but I think the point is, if we have a nice readout in our large animal studies, of course, there's a pretty good chance that this company will end up getting bought as well. So the design, of course, is to complete an $8 to $10 million Series B. I'm pleased to say that we have actually Dr. Joe Macaluso and Emma Patterson, who were investors in the Series A. And for the Series B, we have, I think so far, 3 syndicate leads, Fred Duffy, Wendy Whittington, Jim Palazzo and his wife Carol, and Emma as well. So thank you all for your support. And with this round, of course, have another handful of institutional investors coming in with you. So I think with that, I would just say thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? All right.
All right, thanks a lot.
Oh, thank you.
Great presentation, and we were really enthused about your company. Out of 150,
thank you.
It really popped up top there, and I'm so glad for it. And hope that you have a lot of success as you go forward. We're going to be right there with you. Present you with
thank you.
your award, and good luck to you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank
Great.
you.